Okay, so have you ever, like, when you look up at a stormy sky, right?
Yeah.
And you get this, like, primal feeling, like,
Mhm.
there's something just massive and ancient and powerful, like,
Yeah,
swirling around up there.
absolutely.
Because if you have, you're really tapping into something that, like, ran deep through so many different cultures all across North America for centuries.
That's so true.
We are talking about the Thunderbird.
The Thunderbird.
A creature so powerful that the old stories said it could actually command thunder and lightning.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is pretty wild.
Yeah,
So we are going to dive deep into this legendary sky giant today, and I think you are going to find it just as fascinating as I do.
I think so too.
So when we start talking about the Thunderbird, we're really talking about a legend that spans pretty much the entire continent of North America.
It really does. I mean, you look at the traditions of indigenous peoples from, the Atlantic coast all the way over to the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
You're going to find versions of this Thunderbird story.
Yeah.
It really is a continent-spanning phenomenon.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to some kind of shared understanding of the power of the skies.
It really is incredible, that shared mythology. And what I think is also wild is that even the artwork, right? Sometimes they're just simple X's in these ancient drawings,
Right.
and it's enough to represent this incredible being.
Yeah.
But when they actually describe it in the stories, it's almost always this gigantic eagle,
Oh, yeah.
this just absolutely colossal bird.
For a bird of huge proportions.
So what do you make of that consistency across such vast distances and different cultures? It's pretty remarkable.
I think what's really fascinating here is that central image of the giant eagle
Yeah.
and its connection to the storms.
Right.
The thunder that you hear is actually the beating of its enormous wings.
Wow.
It's a really powerful and visceral explanation for this natural phenomenon that,
Yeah.
we've all experienced.
For sure.
And it really is, I think, a core attribute that resonates across so many different cultures.
Mm.
It's almost like this fundamental link between what we can see
Right.
and the unseen.
Yeah, and the lightning wasn't just some random spark, it
Yeah.
was part of the Thunderbird itself.
Right.
Some traditions said that it flashed from its eyes
Yeah, like a laser beam.
like a celestial laser beam.
Exactly.
And others linked it directly to the flapping of those massive wings. It's like, this creature was the storm-made flesh,
Yeah.
or feather, I guess, in this case.
Or feather.
So we've got this incredible image of this powerful sky being.
Yeah.
But how does it actually fit into, like, the cosmology, this sort of the worldview of these different indigenous cultures?
Well, if we look at sort of the bigger picture of many indigenous cosmologies,
Right.
the Thunderbird often occupies like a very specific and important place.
Okay.
It's frequently associated with the upper world,
Okay.
or the realm of the sky and the heavens.
Right.
And this often creates a really interesting contrast with the underworld, which is often seen as the domain of creatures like the great horned serpent or the underwater panther.
Okay.
So you almost get this sense of a dynamic balance
Yeah.
between these really powerful forces.
Yeah, so you have this epic cosmic drama
Yeah,
playing out, right? Sky versus earth, good versus bad.
right.
What is the Thunderbird's role in all of this?
I think it's really interesting because sometimes it's portrayed as a protector,
Right.
a real guardian of humans, protecting them against evil spirits
Okay.
and dangerous creatures.
But sometimes it's something else too, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's this enforcer of justice and morality,
Oh, wow.
and it's this being that won't hesitate to punish wrongdoing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I think it really reflects this belief in a natural order
Right.
and that there are consequences
Yeah.
for disrupting that order.
So it's not your friendly neighborhood pigeon.
No, not at all.
This is a being of serious power and consequence.
Right.
And the physical descriptions really hammer that home. Forget the bald eagle you might see soaring overhead. We're
Right.
talking about wingspans so vast.
Oh my God.
They could supposedly carry whales.
It's incredible.
Can you imagine the
Yeah.
sheer awe and terror
Yeah.
that image would inspire?
Yeah, I think that's the point.
Yeah.
The sheer scale is meant to inspire exactly
Definitely
that
right.
and a healthy respect
true.
for the power of nature.
And it's not just the size either, right?
Yeah.
They describe these bright, colorful feathers,
Oh, yeah.
sharp teeth and claws. They're really driving home this point that this is an apex predator
Oh, yeah.
in the sky.
It's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, so where would a creature like this even live?
Right.
Not exactly perching on a telephone wire.
No.
So the stories place its habitat way up high,
Yeah.
in the clouds above the tallest mountains.
Inaccessible.
Yeah, it's like they're saying this power resides in the most remote and wild parts of the world.
Right. And some traditions even get more specific.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How so?
Yeah. So, for example, the Menominee people
Okay.
have these stories of a great mountain
Oh.
that floats in the western sky.
Oh.
And that's where their Thunderbirds live.
Wow.
And they control the rain and hail
Okay.
from this celestial vantage point.
It's such a striking image.
Yeah, it really illustrates how deeply intertwined
Right.
their understanding of the natural world was
Yeah.
with the spiritual realm.
Okay, so we've got this incredible picture of this mythical Thunderbird. But this isn't just some like dusty old myth, is it?
Right.
Because there have been some more recent reports, sightings that kind of make you wonder if there might be some basis in reality.
That's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
When the folklore seems to brush up
Yeah.
against the possibility of something more tangible.
Right. You mentioned the 1890 newspaper reports
Yeah.
of these gigantic winged creatures.
Yeah.
These weren't just like fireside tales. This was being reported in the news.
Yeah.
What do you make of that jump from oral tradition to print?
That is really fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think the most famous of those has to be the Tombstone Epitaph story
Oh, yeah.
from April 26th, 1890,
1890.
where two ranchers
Okay.
killed or captured this absolutely enormous alligator-like winged monster,
Yeah.
supposedly 92 feet long.
92 feet long.
92 feet.
So for context, that's almost the length of 3 articulated city buses
Wow.
lined up end to end.
It's just mind-boggling.
It is a mind-boggling claim.
It is.
What do we make of that?
Well, it's definitely a sensational story.
Right.
But what's so fascinating, and I'm sure you've already considered this,
Yeah.
is that there's no real evidence to back it up
Right.
beyond that initial report.
Yeah.
It definitely fits the tenor of the late 19th century,
Okay.
when,
Yeah.
newspapers sometimes prioritized a good story over strict fact-checking.
Yeah.
So I think, tall tales definitely had a way of finding their way into the news back then.
True enough. And then we fast forward quite a bit
Yeah.
to 1948, and suddenly we have multiple sightings popping up in Illinois and Missouri.
Yeah.
So first we have 3 people in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
They see what they think is an airplane.
Okay.
But then they notice its wings are flapping
Yeah.
in a way that's very distinctly bird-like.
That's a pretty specific detail.
It is a pretty specific detail.
Yeah.
And then just a few weeks later,
Yeah.
there's another sighting in Illinois.
Yeah.
A man and his son report seeing in this massive bird
Right.
with a really unusual body shape.
Well, wow.
But what stands out here is that they say its shadow was similar in size to a small plane flying at 500 feet.
Oh, wow.
So that gives you a real sense of scale.
It does.
What do you think might explain these clusters of sightings?
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But then around the same time in St. Louis, you had these concerned citizens writing to the mayor
Oh, really?
demanding that he do something about these giant birds flying around.
Wow.
Yeah, they were clearly worried.
Oh, my God.
And the mayor decided that the best course of action was to set traps.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And what happened?
They only found the tracks
Yeah.
of a blue heron.
Of a blue heron.
Pencil heron.
So much for the Thunderbird.
Well, it does highlight the potential for
Yeah.
misidentification,
Sure.
especially when people are already primed
Right.
to believe in something extraordinary.
Yeah.
So a large bird seen quickly or from a distance
Right.
can certainly appear much bigger than it actually is.
That makes sense. And that brings us up to the 21st century,
Yeah.
where these reports pop up again
Right.
from as far north as Alaska,
Right.
all the way down to Texas.
Okay.
But it's interesting how much popular culture seems to be bleeding into these accounts.
Yeah.
Because people often describe these gigantic birds as looking like something right out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Does that have an influence on our perceptions, do you think?
I think so. I think the power of suggestion and the impact of media
Mm-hmm.
are really significant factors in contemporary sightings
Yeah.
of all kinds of unexplained phenomena.
Right. And of course, with the rise of paranormal reality shows,
Oh, yeah.
there's been a renewed interest in cryptids like the Thunderbird,
Right.
leading to more investigations.
Yeah.
But so far, no concrete verifiable evidence.
No.
So let's talk about some of the more scientifically grounded interpretations.
Okay.
Author Benjamin Radford
Yeah.
suggests that many of the recent sightings, particularly in the Southwest,
Uh-huh.
could just be misidentifications
Okay.
of large birds that we know exist in that region,
Yeah.
like California condors.
California condors.
They have significant wingspans.
They do.
Could it be that simple?
It's a logical explanation
Yeah.
for some of these reports.
Right.
But what's really thought-provoking to me
Yeah.
is this connection that researchers like Adrian Mayer and Tom Holland have proposed.
Okay.
They suggest that the Thunderbird legend might actually have its origins in discoveries of pterosaur fossils
Whoa.
by indigenous peoples
Really?
centuries ago. So imagine encountering the massive, bony remains of a
Oh,
creature
crazy.
with these enormous wings.
Yeah.
If you don't have a concept of paleontology,
Right.
wouldn't it be natural to link that to existing beliefs
Yeah.
about powerful sky beings?
That is mind-blowing.
It is a really cool idea.
That ancient people were unearthing
Yeah.
evidence of giant flying reptiles
Yeah.
and weaving those discoveries into their existing spiritual narratives.
Yeah.
And then you have the teratorn fossils,
Oh, yeah.
these gigantic prehistoric birds with wingspans of up to 16 feet
16 feet.
that were living around the time that early humans arrived in North America.
Yeah.
It's another compelling link
Right.
to a real-world basis for the legend.
These were massive birds.
Yeah.
And I think that the memory of such creatures,
Yeah.
perhaps passed down through generations, or the
Yeah.
discovery of their fossilized remains,
Yeah.
could certainly have contributed
Right.
to this persistent image of the Thunderbird.
It really makes you think about those potential ancient encounters with fossils.
Mm.
But I think it's important for us to remember
Yes.
that the heart of the Thunderbird story
Mm-hmm.
lies in the rich and diverse cultural traditions of indigenous peoples.
Absolutely.
So let's delve deeper into those
Yeah.
and the fascinating variations in beliefs
Okay.
across all the different tribes.
Yeah.
What are some of the key themes that you see emerging here?
I think what's really remarkable is how the Thunderbird,
Yeah.
despite its widespread presence in North American mythology,
Right.
takes on all these unique roles
Okay.
and characteristics,
Yeah.
depending on the specific traditions of each tribe.
Right.
So its immense size is often emphasized
Yeah.
through really vivid imagery.
Yeah. You mentioned that story about a single feather
Yeah.
being so large it had to be folded to fit inside an arrow quiver.
It's just incredible.
And the idea that it could carry a whale
A wave.
in its talons is just mind-boggling. It's like a superhero of the skies.
Absolutely.
But beyond that power, its temperament also seems to vary quite a bit.
Yeah, it does.
Right.
Yeah.
So its anger is almost universally described as terrifying.
Oh, yes.
Capable of, like, huge destruction. But its general role
Right.
could be very different depending on the tribe.
Yeah, in some legends, it's a deity,
Right.
a being of immense intelligence,
Okay.
a real key player in their understanding of the world.
Mm.
So it's not just this force of nature.
Right.
It's a conscious, powerful being with its own agenda.
It's fascinating how it can be both a bringer of life
Yeah.
and a force of potential devastation.
It's that duality, isn't it?
It is that duality of nature.
Yeah.
The same storms that bring the rain
Yeah.
also unleash these destructive winds and floods and lightning.
It's true.
The Thunderbird really seems to embody that tension.
And it's so fascinating to see these similar legends of powerful sky beings in cultures all over the world.
Yeah.
It really suggests to me that this is a very fundamental human fascination with the power of the heavens.
It makes you think about that shared experience
Yeah.
of looking up at a turbulent sky.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier that the Thunderbird could actually shapeshift
Right.
in some traditions.
Yeah.
What's the significance of that?
Well, shape-shifting is a really powerful motif
Yeah.
in many mythologies.
Right.
And the idea that this amazing creature
Yeah.
could transform into a human,
Mm.
it's a compelling narrative.
Yeah. And even marry humans.
Oh, yeah.
By just removing its feathers.
Taking off its feathers like a cloak.
Look at it go, look! That's so wild.
I know. And the Shawnee tradition
Okay.
of identifying them
Yeah.
by their habit of speaking backward
Whoa.
is just so interesting.
That's so specific.
It is. And then the stories of them appearing as ordinary boys
Yeah.
really highlight the idea that the extraordinary can be hidden in plain sight.
So let's get into some specific tribal beliefs.
Okay.
Starting with the Menominee,
Menominee.
who see the Thunderbird as a messenger of the great sun.
The enemy of the great horned snake.
Yeah.
Their mythology emphasizes that cosmic balance.
That battle between good and evil.
Right. Then you have the Ojibwe.
The Ojibwe.
For them, the Thunderbird was created by Nanabozo
Right.
to fight these underwater spirits.
Right.
And they believe that the Thunderbird punishes those who violate moral codes.
Interesting.
And they talk about them migrating with other birds
Yeah.
in the spring and fall.
Yeah.
So beautifully connecting the natural cycles with the spiritual understanding.
It's a beautiful image.
It is. And the Winnebago have a really distinctive perspective.
Uh-huh.
They link the Thunderbird
Yeah.
to a vision
Yeah.
that you might have during a fast.
Yeah.
And this vision could lead you to becoming a war chief.
Wow.
And they believe that the Thunderbird can actually bestow superhuman abilities.
Wow. That's pretty powerful.
It is.
So for them, it's a source of empowerment
Right.
and destiny.
And then we have the Sioux,
Yeah.
who see the Thunderbird as a defense against these reptilian monsters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the Unctahila.
Oh, the Unctahila.
Yeah.
So for them, it's a guardian against these primordial threats.
Yeah.
And the Arapaho understand the Thunderbird as a creature of summer, balanced by the white owl of winter.
Oh, wow.
Which is a really beautiful illustration of the cyclical nature of the seasons.
Yeah, and for the Algonquins,
Right.
they see the Thunderbird as having played this fundamental role in the creation of the universe,
Wow.
controlling the upper world,
Yeah.
and safeguarding humans
Right.
from the underwater panther or the great horned serpent by wielding lightning.
So a really foundational figure in their cosmology,
Yeah.
and even the Gros Ventre tradition
Right.
of the Thunderbird gifting the sacred pipe to the people
It's amazing.
highlights its benevolent role.
In their
as well.
culture. And for the Lakota,
Yeah.
simply recognizing them as protectors
Yeah.
really speaks volumes about their significance.
It does. The diversity of roles and attributes is really
Yeah.
pretty astonishing.
From being omens to having origin stories that
Right.
range from warriors seeking the source of thunder
Right.
to epic battles with whale gods.
Wow.
The Thunderbird really does embody this multifaceted power.
Yeah, and it's consistently represented in their art.
Right.
Totem poles, pottery petroglyphs,
Yeah.
masks, jewelry carvings.
And stories were told through songs and oral histories.
Exactly. So these stories weren't just spoken.
Right.
They were woven into the fabric of their culture.
And even the iconography is so striking.
It is.
Often depicted as birds of prey
Yeah.
or human-bird hybrids.
Right.
They convey this blend of the natural and supernatural.
And the Algonquian preference for that spread-eagled bird,
Right.
or the X shape with the wings held alongside the body
Yeah.
and the head pointing forward, is just this really recognizable and powerful symbol.
Yeah. And then they found these headless X shapes on ancient artifacts.
Right.
Suggesting a really long history for this representation.
Yeah, as a visual language,
Mm.
that carries a lot of weight,
Right.
representing not just a creature,
Yeah.
but a whole complex system of beliefs.
So we have journeyed through these widespread descriptions,
Yeah.
touched on the historical and modern sightings,
Right.
and really delved into the rich tapestry
Yeah.
of cultural significance.
It's clear that the Thunderbird is so much more than a spooky bird story.
so much more. It's this potent symbol of power, of protection,
Uh-huh.
of the forces of nature,
Right.
and the connection between the human and spiritual realms.
It reflects a very deep and nuanced understanding of the world.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It does.
When you consider the ubiquity of these legends and
Yeah.
even these unconfirmed modern sightings,
Yeah.
could there be more to this than just a shared myth?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
These stories have resonated for centuries,
Right.
and they're woven into the fabric of so many cultures.
Yeah.
Is it possible
Mm.
that within these myths, within these shared experiences of looking up at the stormy skies,
Right.
lies a kernel of something
Yeah.
that we don't quite understand
Yeah.
about the mysteries that are still up there?
It's a thought that leaves you looking at the world,
Yeah.
and especially the sky,
Yeah.
with a renewed sense of wonder.
A little bit of awe.
And a little bit of awe. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. I hope you found it as fascinating as I did. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future episodes.
And if you have any personal experiences or thoughts about the Thunderbird, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Leave us a comment below.
Yeah.
And until next time, keep looking up.
And stay curious.
Yeah.